Before my closing eyes, shine through the gloom and point me to the skies. Before my closing eyes, shine through the gloom and point me to the skies. As morning breaks and earth's vain shadows flee, O Lord, abide with me. Sing the wondrous love of Jesus, sing His mercy and His grace. In the mansions bright and blessed, He'll prepare for us a place. When we all get to heaven, what a day of rejoicing that will be. When we all see Jesus, we'll sing and shout the victory. While we walk the pilgrim pathway, clouds will overspread the sky. But when traveling days are over, not a shadow, not a sigh. When we all get to heaven, what a day of rejoicing that will be. When we all see Jesus, we'll sing and shout the victory. Let us then be true and faithful, trusting, serving every day. Just one glimpse of Him in glory will the toils of life repay. When we all get to heaven, what a day of rejoicing that will be. When we all see Jesus, we'll sing and shout the victory. When the trumpet of the Lord shall sound and time shall be no more, and the morning breaks eternal, bright and fair. When the saved of earth shall gather over on the other shore, and the roll is called up yonder, I'll be there. When the roll is called up yonder, I'll be there. When the roll is called up yonder, I'll be there. When the roll is called up yonder, when the roll is called up yonder, I'll be there. On that bright and cloudless morning, when the dead in Christ shall rise, and the glory of His resurrection share. When His chosen ones shall gather to their home beyond the skies, and the roll is called up yonder, I'll be there. When the roll is called up yonder, I'll be there. When the roll is called up yonder, I'll be there. When the roll is called up yonder, when the roll is called up yonder, I'll be there. Let us labor for the Master from the dawn till setting sun. Let us talk of all His wondrous love and care. Then when all of life is over and our work on earth is done, and the roll is called up yonder, I'll be there. When the roll is called up yonder, I'll be there. When the roll is called up yonder, I'll be there. When the roll is called up yonder, when the roll is called up yonder, I'll be there.
Good evening and welcome to our Nav Life session. I'm Trevor Smith and I'll be your guide today, primarily. 1 minute, please. Sure. All right, so let me get our show on the road. As I said, I'm Trevor and I'll be guiding you today. We are small in numbers, but we will continue to move forward. So Navigating Life is a series of the St. Andrew Church of Christ, and our facilitators are Andre Allen Casey, who is a counseling psychologist, and myself. Brother Andre has been trained in Alabama at the Heritage Christian University. He was a Bachelor of Arts in Bible, as well as a Master's in counseling psychology from the Northern Caribbean University. I am a member of the St. Andrew Church of Christ, and I help individuals, teams, and organizations to modify their behavior in order to increase performance and to achieve their goals. So I want to just welcome you if you are on board. Love to just hear. If you are there, you could just say hi, hi, hi. I think I see someone who might have been deported already. I'm not sure. But yes, if you could just heal me up so that I know that I'm not alone, that would help me.
Hey, my brother, how are you?
Oh, wonderful.
Great, great. I heard that there's a foreigner, Jamaican foreigner that is on now, and I want to wish her all the best. Fear on me.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether she has been back. I'm just looking at the news to see. Normally they tell you whether somebody has been deported, but just waiting to see if all has gone well. All right. I don't want to waste any more time trying to set up myself here. All right. Okay, there we go. I think I'm good to go now. Yeah, anybody wants to say hello? Greetings, I'm saying fine. We missed a session the last time, and maybe people are not sure that we are back, but we are. And so let me get right into it. All right. Sometimes I have left out the point where we actually show people what to do on Zoom. I'm having a problem here. Okay, fine. I think I'm all right now. Right, got it. Okay, so we're looking at self-actualization, tips to achieving our full potential. Yes. This is not going to be a psychology class. So I just want to make that clear, but let us go right into the thing. All right, so what is our game plan? Our game plan today is that we will provide some context to the discussion. We will examine the concept of self-actualization. And we will actually use Maslow, who was the person who made the concept more popular. He wasn't the first person that came up with it. So we want to look at his ideas as to what self-actualization means, and to see some of them. I'm not going to clearly go through all of them, but we want to look at some of them that stand out for me. And there's an interesting angle that I want to take. While Maslow himself was not a Christian, as a matter of fact, he had a sort of different view, a sort of mystical idea about religion. I want to examine how the scriptures actually guide us towards self-actualization. It's an interesting perspective, because one of the concepts that Maslow laid out is that self-actualizing people tend to be not constrained, by a lot of strictures and so on. And of course, that's how people see religion. People see things like Christianity as a set of restrictions, and the self-actualized person is maybe free of some of those limitations. But it's an interesting concept. Hopefully, I won't get myself in trouble and somebody will rescue me, but I want to go down that road, because let me tell you why I'm going there. Is that I'm of the view that the scriptures leads us in terms of our science, so we understand like hydrolysis, we understand a number of things, springs under the sea, things that people discover afterwards, scientists discover afterwards, which was in the scriptures. And I wanted to see if the same would apply to the social sciences. So here we are in terms of psychology. And I don't want it to say, okay, fine, here is this hierarchy of needs being celebrated, because where Maslow is coming from is that when he came up with it, or popularized the idea, there was a time when, just like we are seeing our shift in medicine, where before medical science was about healing. People who are sick, we're going to try and get them better. Now there is a big push towards wellness. Let us keep healthy people healthy as a serious branch and focus of medicine. And he also looked at the situation where back then psychology was about helping people who were not right, if you want to look at it. He called them unhealthy, actually. And he's saying, hey, why are we only dealing with the people who are unhealthy in terms of psychology? Why don't we help people who want to grow? So there was a whole question of the deficiency, people who had challenges and they needed to fix those gaps, as against individuals now who wanted to grow, who I'm all right, but I want to be better. So that's the concept. And so that's where I wanted to go and to see then, because to me, that's where the scriptures come in that it talks about renewal of the mind. It talks about not conforming, but be transformed. So there's a growth phenomenon in the scriptures, in Bible, in Christianity, that was there. And I'm saying, hey, is it possible then that once again, we are way ahead of the science? That's where it's going. I hope nobody loves laugh now because of that preamble, but basically, that's the journey, intriguing journey that I would like us to go on. So, and by the way, this is open forum now. Okay, you can stop. And ideally, not in the middle of a sentence, but maybe you can, raise your hand, and I'll be happy. I definitely not only will be happy, I am imploring you, please, to participate. All right. So, self-actualization then is this concept that was made popular by Abraham Maslow. And anybody who does psychology at school know the hierarchy of needs. And it speaks to the movement towards achieving our full potential. And it is at the top of the hierarchy of needs. All right. So we know the physiological needs, just food, shelter, clothing, warmth, all of that is the basic needs that we all, have to have. And then there's the safety, the security, even things, it's expanded now to look at things like whether you're employed, if you have resources, you have assets, those kind of things. So basically some kind of capacity to exist. And then of course it moves up now to the belonging, the love, the need for friendship, the need for family and connecting with others. And then above that now would be the self-esteem. Well, it's not only self-esteem, but also respect from others. So we need those two things. And then at the very top now, which is where we are, is this desire to be the best that we can be, to maximize whatever it is that we see as important. So that's where we are, right? And what Maslow, and I think a number of critics afterwards were looking at, is that this higher level, it has these 5 areas. As a matter of fact, he came back afterwards to say, you don't actually have to have 100% satisfaction of each one. Initially, he was saying that you have to satisfy one before you can get to the other. What he's saying now, if you have some element of satisfaction at different levels, you can actually, go above. And then, even though there are some arguments that it is possible maybe that some people can actually jump and be focused on particular areas. But let's not get distracted by that. The key, though, is that these are deficiency areas. In other words, we need to have these to satisfy some gap, right? So that's a sort of need thing, whereas the self-actualization is a growth concept, growth motivation. So we are motivated to do these things to fill gaps, physiological, the safety, but this one is really more a growth. We're motivated to do it in order to grow, right? And the concept again now is that once this is there, if I have air and food and water, then I'm not so concerned about that. I can move forward. So I'm going to look at now to see if I can, board up my house so that I'm safe. And then if that is the case, then, maybe I can start to look over my fence to see if I can find a neighbor. And so that's basically what it is. As soon as one set is satisfied, you move on to the next. What he's saying, though, the concept is, with respect to self-actualization, is that it continues. The more you are becoming yourself or what it is that you desire, is the more you go at it. So whereas the others, once you're satisfied with them, you can move to the next level with self-actualization. There's a continuous process that you want to get more and more and more of. So the challenge though is that Maslow said that very few people, like less than 20% of persons, are actually self-actualizing. Yeah. And so the question is, why would that be the case? Why would so few of us be at a level that we could say that we are self-actualizing? Right? And that's a question that I want to put out to you. Why is it that most of us struggle, even though it should be, or it is, an innate desire? That's a question that, if you wish, you can jump in. I'd love to get some input on that. What are your thoughts? Why is it that people are not actively engaged? Maybe I should put out all the questions first, right? And the question, you don't have to answer it yourself, but I want you to think about that. And I'll answer these kind of questions. Is this something that you have actively thought about in all seriousness? And if you want to share and talk about it, sometimes being vulnerable makes sense. Is this a concept that has occupied your mind? Yes? No? Anybody wants to share?
Yes, it has. Can you hear me?
Yes, I'm hearing you.
Okay, yes, it has. And the answer to the first question for me, I mean, I always think about why it is that people are not going after purpose, self-actualization, those things. And I think that it is because so many persons, when you're caught up with thinking about where you're going to get your next meal from, or if you're going to have a roof over your head at the end of the month, it becomes very difficult to really think about the higher level needs. And so, whereas you said, Maslow has said that you don't need to meet each one of the levels at 100%, it does become very difficult, I believe, to leapfrog straight from the physiological right up to self-actualization, which is, to me, normally when the other things are taken care of and you can now think about giving back and all of these philanthropic ideals normally come into play at that point in time. So I think that's why many persons struggle with self-actualization, even although it is an innate drive.
Thanks, Michelle. Really put your finger right on this stuff, as a matter of fact. But he even recognizes this, that sometimes it's that sort of roller coaster ride as well. So even though some of us might be approaching, or there are a number of factors that actually come in to interfere with the process. And exactly that, for example, I could be at a stage where I'm comfortable. And one thing that we talk about is that self-actualization is a different thing for different persons. It's not just money, it's not just all of these things. It could be a relationship. I could be self-actualized because my focus is to be a great father. And I'm doing well in that, case, in which case, basically, I'm in self-actualizing mode. But something could happen. If it's younger age, whatever it is, I thought that there's a child who maybe needed to go to college, and then something happened to me economically, I can't send them, and so I start to have issues. So those are some of the things that comes in. So Michelle has put her finger right on it, is that it is challenging. And another reason why many people are not there is just this sheer fact of economics. We talk about some of them, and some of the, in terms of cultural heritage. You might live in a particular area, for example. I think if we look at Afghanistan, where if you're a woman in that scenario, you're going to have issues being self-actualized, because you might aspire to have wonderful impact as a doctor, but you're not even allowed to go to school. So there are a number of factors that can in fact limit us from being in the self-actualization zone. It's not just a mindset, or we're not interested in doing that. There are some major factors that impact how we can get there. I wanted to also just leave the fact though that it is not just money or relationships or career. There are a number of things. Some people, it's just art. They just want to be able to create and make an impact in terms of what they're leaving for the world to see, and that's fine, right? The key is to identify something that is important to you and work to be your best at it. That's essentially, that's my little I don't know what it is, bastardization of the concept. In the same, that's the idea, is that you see something that you consider to be important, and you invest yourself, all your energies in making that happen. All right. Thanks for the input. We're going to learn from each other today. All right. So, as we mentioned, the whole idea is that human motivation, that he was looking at. Remember, he's not looking to fix sick people, psychologically ill people. He's looking to see how we can look at the other side, to see how we can motivate people to grow. And so what you're saying is that, and this is no positive psychology. This is the root of positive psychology. And so it's based on people seeking fulfillment and change through personal growth. That's the Maslow idea. So self-actualized people, on the basis of this concept, are those who are fulfilled and doing all they were capable of doing. That's it. Focused on that. All right. So here's a question, right? This is Paul. And he's saying, I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. And he can do all of this through him who gives him the strength. The question is this a self-actualized person? This whole concept, is this a solid understanding of the concept of self-actualization? We are basically contentment. I know I can navigate, because one of the things about self-actualization is, one of the characteristics is the capacity to navigate through ups and downs, through whatever nature throws at you, life throws at you, you are able to cope and to go through effectively. Would we say that Paul, Apostle Paul, is a self-actualized, or is in the self-actualizing process? Anybody want to weigh in on that? Is this a desirable state to be in? Okay. Crowd will warm up eventually. All right. So, as I said, Maslow has 15 characteristics that he looked at. And I'm going to just go through some of them. Right? I'm not going to go through all, clearly, we don't have the time, but I wanted to share some with you. I am, though, asking that we participate, because it's going to make us learn a lot more. All right, so I'm quoting, and Maslow wrote some time ago, so the language might not be as easy to read, but I wanted to get as close to his actual text. All right, so he's saying self-actualizing individuals. What he did, actually, he looked around for people who he thought were self-actualizing, and then looked at their characteristics. So it's not a big study, it's a very small number of persons. So sometimes when we lay a lot of store by these things, you have to understand the context is that this is a very small number of persons that he looked at, and he looked at the characteristics, and then he said, okay, fine. This is how we could describe self-actualizing people. So he's saying one characteristic here, which is their perception. He's saying that self-actualized individuals, are people who are moving in that direction, have a better perception of reality and ability to accept it. Today, we're calling this resilience. I think, that's the idea. We're looking for resilience in our organizations, etc., that we are now ready for this, ready for that. That's the concept. The idea is that we see through things. We understand that this is reality. Yes? It's not some concoction. It's not some spin. It's not some idea that people are out there throwing around and, rallying. If you go back to the scriptures, we had these prophets that kept telling people, no, man, the Israelites, you're safe. No, nobody's going to take it over. And God is saying, don't listen to those people because we're going to punish you. I'm going to punish you. And he said, no, you're safe. Everything is all right. That's what we're talking about. We are talking about the reality, facing reality. So what he says is that these individuals living in the real world of nature than in the man-made mass of concepts and abstractions and expectations. And you could have called it social media. They don't live in the social media world. They live in a situation where reality faces them. And as they say, just like today, people confuse all of that stuff that's going on in the news and, fake news and so on. People confuse that with the real world. I don't want to get deep into politics or into it any at all, but if you consider what's happening in the United States, where there's a movement that's just totally unreal, they just live in a completely different understanding of reality. Yeah, they still have a president that was booted out of office years ago, but he's still. So that's what we're talking about. There's a reality. You can cut through all of the noise. Right? So they are therefore more apt to perceive what is there rather than their own wishes, hopes, fears, anxieties, their own theories, a lot of theories, beliefs are those of their culture or group. So in other words, these people are willing to, are able to step aside from misguided theories, beliefs, all of that, and get to the core of what is reality. That's challenging, by the way. That's not as easy as it sounds, because our socialization and the noise that we get, and well, not just noise. I mean, we're talking about our parents, our teachers, our friends, all of that is presenting us consistently with information. And it's not as easy to say that that information is not true. So what we're saying is then, if we're going to be self-actualized, and which is the objective of this call, is to say, how can we be the best that we can be? How can we move to a place where we are up in the top of the hierarchy, where we are now looking for growth as against filling gaps? How can we be fulfilled? That's where we are. So one of the things then is that we need to have a better grasp of reality, and critically, the capacity to deal with uncertainty and changing situations. We saw what happened with COVID. That pandemic has shown us how people are, not only people, but institutions, organizations, companies are not resilient, didn't have the capacity to withstand this sudden impact. Yeah. So, as I said in my preamble, what I wanted to look at the extent then to which the scriptures are helping us to manifest these qualities, these characteristics. And I say that the scriptures do, in fact, help us to accept reality, to be flexible, to understand, and to be contented. All right, so here we go. I know
Brother,
Go ahead.
right. Okay. Sorry. Um, you know, based upon what you have shared here, well, clearly, I can now understand and possibly appreciate where Maslow will although it's a small sample group, I can appreciate where is a very small percentage of people would be able to achieve this, because if the things that are mentioned there are our uphill battles, so to speak, the things that we have to conquer so as to achieve some level. I don't care in what area. It doesn't matter what area of discipline that I believe I can become self-actualized. If it's even 60%, I am saying here, these things, these stereotypes you know, my belief system, what I perceive, my fears, my anxieties, my theories. I mean, even my cultural group. I mean, wow, isn't by and large all of these things identify who we are as people, and yet we to unlearn these things and to recognize that this is not the real world, so to speak, and or to fight against these things, or you know, not to allow these things to regulate and dictate who we become and what we become. Wow. That's why I suspect that this subject matter is such a critical and crucial one, and everybody needs to be on board to find out how do we move past all of these things. My comment.
No, brilliant. And let us not, maybe again, we shouldn't rush through this, but you know, but let us not underestimate the challenges, but it's also instructive. Let me give you a quick idea, you know, because something you raised there now is it also has to do with our mindset. So I could be living in, you know, I have a house, I have food, etc. But I see the company doing a little survey, let us say, you know, asking some questions, whatever it is. And I tell myself, hold on, bear in mind, or I hear it in the lunchroom, that they might be retrenching people. So I start now to think that I might be one of those who are going to be laid off. So automatically now I'm moving myself right back down to one of the lower areas, because I'm just wondering, will I have a house? Will I have food? You see the magnitude of where this is going, in the sense that we can tell ourselves things, or we can, you know, accept information. And my goal in this, you know, and going there is also, we're doing another subject, by the way, in Bible class about transforming our mind, renewing the mind, is for us then to not necessarily jump. So the people in the lunchroom might be saying, boy, people will get laid off, and maybe the whole of our department. What if I don't allow myself to buy into that, and don't get into panic? I'm not going home to tell the wife and get them in a situation now that maybe we are in problems. What if I had the capacity to look at the facts? And you know, I was just going through Eckhart Tolle, talking about the moment, the know, that the know is the only thing that is really relevant, because life is a series of no's, and we can only do things in a no. We can't, it's gone already. The past are no things that have gone. The future are no things that have not come. The only thing we can deal with is the no. So as I'm sitting down in the lunchroom and hearing this, am I out on the street? Am I fired? No. Deal with what is no. And that is going to reduce a lot of anxiety. And so those are some of the things that we talk about, because the the people who are self-actualized are not walking around with a whole heap of fears and guilt and all of that. So, you know, Tali has this concept of separating ourselves from our minds. It's a completely different concept. You know, he's saying, listen to your body. But I don't want to go down that road, because it's very challenging to fully understand where he was going in. But what I think he would be talking about is that he's saying that the ego is controlling our minds. You know, that's the job of the ego, is to increasingly control our minds and to get importance. So if the ego can get me to panic, and to worry about what's going to happen to me, then I'm paying more attention to the ego, that false self. And that's something that we need to understand then, as we try to renew, as we try to get the best out of ourselves, and to be fulfilled, is to be more discerning. That's part of it. All right. Okay. So very interesting stuff. So the scripture that I say now, as it talks about a perception of reality. Part of the reality in life is what we see here in Jeremiah. It just says it's not up to us. You know, we're not able to plan our own course. It's not up to us to lay out the plan. So do not put ourselves in a situation where there's surety in your mind. Yes, I should not be in that lunchroom thinking, no one, I would never move me out of my house. You have to come with a crowbar. Not necessarily. So if something happens and you have to go, then that's part of it. That's part of what the resilience is about. It is about an understanding that there's nothing certain that we can determine. And of course, the other piece then would be what we read already now, which is the Pauline concept that, I'm up there, I'm down here. Let me tell you the truth. Wherever I fall, I just understand that this is the reality. I'm going to have to just deal with what is before me. That is a huge step towards fulfillment, the ability to deal with your situation that you're in. Yeah. So, since we're talking about resilience, I wanted to just stick this in. And there are really 5 pillars to this resilience. And the first one we're talking about here, this idea of efficiency, efficient perception, this idea of discernment, that's self-awareness, to understand yourself. We're going to look at one afterwards that talks about this real capacity to deal with who you are. So you need to know your strengths and your weaknesses and be able to really accept it. Not a false sense of either overstating who you are and what you have going for you, or understating it, because we have problems with that. We have individuals who fail to recognize what they have going for them, what the blessings are. And we tend to say that those people have esteem issues and so on. And they try to play it smaller than they should. That's one of the issues that we need to have as we look at this efficient perception of reality. You need to have an accurate understanding of what the situation is, not a false one that overstates, or the one that say, okay, well, I'm a humble person, so therefore I'm going to reduce what I have going for me. No, you want reality. And the other one is mindfulness. This is where Eckhart Tolle was talking about, this idea of living in the moment, living in the now. This is the only time that you can do anything, is in now. Can't do anything about the past, you can't do anything about the future, but you can do something about now. And if you focus on what is now and take action on the basis of what is now, then that's that's going to be helpful. And the whole idea then of being aware of what's happening around you, this awakening to experience what's happening. are you sensitive? Are you conscious about what is happening? Right. Then self-care. It's brother Andre's self-efficacy that he talks about anytime we have these sessions. The ability to actually function effectively. Yes. So let us say, go back to my lunchroom scenario, that in truth and in fact, I do get a letter saying that, unfortunately, you have to go and spend your time elsewhere. Then, yeah, sharpen up my resume and go and find or start a business. I used to, there's a company that I work with that, believe you me, maybe I wanted to be sent home as well, because several of the people that were fired, let go, actually went and did a lot better, start their own business, do this one. Yeah. So that's it. That's what we're talking about, the ability to deal with things, see the reality and face it and go and take action. Yeah. Then of course the relationships, that's critical, believe me. I hear you, loners and independent. I don't want to depend on anybody and live off anybody I tap or whatever. The bottom line is that we are social people, and we do need to have supportive connections. People who have supportive relationships are much better able to cope with resilience. Far, far, far better. Yeah. So, for example, total marriage, if you are in a stable, sound marriage, you have a great edge over others. Great edge over others. There's no question at all about it. All right. And then, of course, your purpose. Serve your faith, family, and society. As a matter of fact, Maslow actually afterwards talks about a level above self-actualization, which is transcendent. And he talks about that, is that people who get deep into their faith and so on are able to even transcend self-actualization. A bigger thing. Don't want to go there. Big stuff above my pay grade. All right. So the second characteristics. Go ahead. I hear somebody opening a mic.
Sorry, Andre again.
Go on.
Yeah. Can I go back to that slide? Facing our reality, though, Brother Smith. You asked the question earlier, what could be some of the hindrances to self-actualization, and considering that self-actualization speaks to that about living in our real world, so to speak, and I have found in my line of work that so there's 5 pillars of resilience here. You said know your strengths and your weaknesses. The amount of folks that do not want to recognize their weaknesses. A matter of fact, if to the extent that if it is announced, then people push back and say that you're speaking it into being, and you must not speak it into being. And I find that as a result of that, a lot of folks are not really living in that real world. The amount of folks that are living in this hope, literally, they're living in a hope and in a dream, and a utopic world, so to speak. And this is why every time a disappointment reaches them, the resilience become a factor or a non-factor, actually, because of where their mind is. And sometimes I think we go to one extreme to the next, where we just believe that we cannot be true to our weaknesses, and at minimum identify them so that we know how to mitigate against those weaknesses. But unfortunately, as soon as some of us start to identify and say, I may have a weak area here, and this is my weak area here, and this is my weak area there, we get pushback where some folks says, don't say that because you're speaking it into being, and what have you. And then the lop side to that is that whenever a disappointment, which will occur, does happen, then persons struggle with their own resilience.
Brilliant stuff. As a matter of fact, we're going right there. on this next thing here. Acceptance. This is what he's saying. Exactly what you just spoke about, Andre. He's saying that one of the things that's different between people who are self-actualizing and the 80% or maybe I think it's probably 90% of us who are not is a failure to accept not only ourselves, but others and nature. Yeah, precisely where you're going there. That lying or, as a matter of fact, I just call it that. I say that we lie to ourselves. So we might have an issue and we kind of downplay it or call it something else or, refuse to accept it because what it would mean if this is true. All right, so he actually looked at that. So here are some characteristics of self-actualizing individuals. There is a relative lack of overriding guilt, or crippling shame, or extreme or severe anxiety. How many of us are living our lives under the burden of some guilt something that we did in the past that's just heavily weighing on us? Something that we're really embarrassed about and it keeps coming back. How many of us are fearing the future, what it is, we're anxious about something. Bear in mind that the only time we can deal with, take action is in the now. Whatever we have done in the past is gone. Whatever is to come has not yet come. We can only deal with what is here now. And if we are burdened, some people have a challenge really even coming out, doing things because of a feeling of shame, of a feeling of not being worthy. And others now, going forward, have major problems. So this is where Brother Andre just spoke about. This is it. If we are moving towards self-actualization, one of the things that we need to take on board is the capacity to look at our frailties, our sins, our weaknesses, even human nature. We excuse a lot of things to say, boy, this is human, and that we are a human, and that's why we do this. Take all of that on board and don't give it any more weight. Just accept it. I like this thing where he's saying that we should just look at those things and accept them just like how we accept nature. Look at this next line here now. Boy, this is amusing. He's saying, should you look at water and say, oh my gosh, the water wet. Oh no. Take up a stone. My God, this thing is hard. And he's saying, yes, people sin. Don't get excited. It's okay. We do have things. We have flaws. We do make mistakes. And that's what he's saying is, why are we making this thing such a big thing? Because that is part of nature. And he's saying the big thing would be for us to get to a place where when these things happen, we take them on board. Oh, rain is falling. Okay, water coming from the sky. We not panic and say, oh my God, water come from the sky. I don't know. This one strike me big time because it's a philosophy. As I said, this self-actualizing, that's why a lot of us are not there, including myself, is really challenging in the sense that we get to a place where when we look at the things that we have done that we regret, and so many things that we really are ashamed of, it shouldn't cripple us. It shouldn't cripple us because water is wet, rocks are hard, rain come from the sky. Yeah, take it in the same breath, same understanding. Whoa. Right? This is sweat stuff. But what he's not saying now, though, that if you are in that process, the limited group of people who are self-actualized, they do, in fact, feel guilty, if you want to call it that, or feel ashamed or anxious or sad about certain things. So it's not a blanket thing now where everything just goes and you feel that, okay, fine, yeah. Well, I did all of this terrible thing and it doesn't really matter. Of course, some of these things matter. So what are some of the things that matter? He's saying that if there are shortcomings, things that you could have dealt with or you can deal with now, then you should be, concerned about it. You should take action about it. Things like laziness, thoughtlessness, ready to lose your temper, hurting others. Those are not things that you just make pass. Those are things that you need to pay attention to and deal with. All right. Forget the language. Basically, what he's saying is that things like, remember he talks about unhealthy, and so prejudice is an unhealthy psychological practice. Being jealous is an unhealthy thing. It's just like you're sick, you have cancer, jealousy, envy. So he's saying that those kinds of things need to be removed. You can't just make these things pass. So if you find that you are prejudiced, or you're jealous, or you're envious, those things need to be cauterized. Right? And then, of course, bad habits. And of course, this one talks about the culture or the fact that nature, part of our human nature is that we don't do things. So those things can be fixed. All right. So the general formula seems to be that healthy people will feel bad about discrepancies between what should be or could be and what is. So those are things that would concern people who are self-actualizing and not turning a blind eye to things that ought not to be. Yes? All right. Big step coming up no, is again in my quest to see how the scriptures help us in our journey. So he's talking about accepting of self, others, and nature. So the first thing that the scriptures tell us is that, listen to me, same thing, water is wet, people sin. Water is wet, people sin. Rock is hard, people sin. That's it. Understand that that is a part of reality. So you want to, when you say accept it, you want to understand that you are not abnormal because you sin. You are not to be crippling yourself because you have sinned, because that's a reality. Everybody has sinned. So this helps you then to get to a place where you better understand your frailties, better understand what happens when you do something that you should not have done. Yes? It's not a crippling situation, but bear in mind, we talk about the possibilities then of fixing things that are not the way they should be, right? And again, John tells us, if we say we have no sin, we deceive ourselves. However, bear in mind that there is a way out. And that's one of the great things about what the scriptures do. It's not just say to you, boy, you have a problem, but there's a solution. And then that's where I want to look. The encouragement that comes. So that's why we shouldn't be crippled. Water is wet, we sin. However, there's a way forward that we should be encouraged by. The scriptures provide us with this kind of encouragement. Am I not commanding? I'm saying, listen to me, be strong and courageous. When you going in a corner and curl up because you make this mistake? No, don't be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. So even though, yes, sin separates you from God, but if you can repent and move forward, it is not a death sentence. It's not a call to be crippled. That's basically where I see the scripture supporting us as we move towards self-actualization. So we are not then turned back because of errors. We don't give up on the journey because we are faltered. A lot of persons who have put on Christianity make a mistake and then they just walk away and give up the journey. And we are saying that's not the understanding that we need to have. But what about acceptance of others. We haven't spoken about that, All we have spoken about is how, how we get crippled when we do something. But what about others? When others do something, if we understand that we have sinned, that we make these mistakes, what about others? What happens when we come down on somebody's head? You see how you're wicked, you see how you do this? And my gosh, what a terrible person you are. Love your neighbor as yourself. A lot of us don't forgive ourselves, but let us assume that we do forgive ourselves. Should we not be giving the same kind of latitude to others? When we look at our frailties, are we saying no, we can do that, but you can't do that? When we really lash out and hate, or even, in our hearts, really hate, despise people, are we moving towards being our best selves? Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. That selfishness, that me and mine. What about others? Are we valuing others? Do we really want for others what we would want for ourselves? That's what the love of neighbor as yourself means, that whatever it is I want for myself, I should want my neighbor. My neighbor is everybody. So we should be looking to help the community. That powerful thing. Love your enemies, pray for those who persecute you. To me, Brother Andrew, we're talking about it and we're saying that the Maslow things, that the challenging. But look at these scriptures, it's not easy either. So my colleague or my neighbor who sent him dog to dig out all of my wife's plants or whatever it is, I want to talk to him about it and tell me all sorts of things. When I kneel down, in the night, should I be saying, Lord, just bless my neighbor and let him, let his dogs grow taller so that they can dig out more plants? No, seriously, I don't joke. But am I really, is this as easy? It's not easy, but I'm saying, but it's the right direction. It's the right direction. So we would have peace, and harmony. Above all, love each other deeply because love covers over a multitude of sin. So when I say something to a colleague that wasn't the right thing, or I did something, it can say, it's all right, Trevor. It's okay. All right. So we don't pray. That's how it is. And we can actually move forward. The self-actualizing thing is not as easy as it sounds, but it's possible. And the scriptures, for me, the scriptures, Maslow don't go anywhere near this, by the way. But I find that the scriptures are moving us in the right direction if we just follow and pay attention. And then, of course, nature. One of the things now, people are getting very serious about the environment and so on. Right? I see a chat here. Can I pray that the dogs get allergic to flower? All right, Brother David. There, okay. I'm not sure whether that's a good prayer, but are not 5 sparrows sold for 2 pennies, and not one of them is forgotten before God. I mean, yeah. So we look at the things, the little birds that fly up and down. Yeah. What as we get more environmentally serious, the scriptures are there as well. That we need to take on this. These things are important to God. These things are important. This is God's handiwork. Heavens declare the beauty. So when we are, not serious, or when we damage the environment, or not taking it on seriously, are we moving towards being our best self? When we mash up the place that we have to live, and our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren, are we really doing the best that we can be? Whoa, heavy Lord, trust me, these things are challenging. All right. Any questions, any comments so far, any inputs?
Mr. Smith?
Yes, sir. And
So
Trevor.
I'd like to make a comment. I'm Alrington Roberts.
All right, I'm
I'd
Trevor.
like to make a comment. So I remember a couple of years ago, there was a proposal from the Chinese to develop the Goat Islands of the Olaba course. And you
Yes.
just say about our environment. But when they looked at the economic spin-off for employment and generation and revenue, you know, the country would have gained greatly in two of the areas that we are really suffering now in terms of employment and revenue intake in terms of taxes. So I know we have to strike a balance between the environment and economic development, but some of the times I think maybe, you know, the government is leaning too much towards the environment to the detriment of other economic development. But that's just my views, though. That's just my views.
It's a view that's shared by many as well. The question is vision, and in terms of whether we have a shorter term vision or a longer term vision. And it goes back again to some of the questions as to how do you value, how do you put a monetary value on water, or, you know, all sort of environmental factors, because we can see what is happening with climate change, all of those kind of things now. Is there going to be a cost that's far outstrips the value of this money that we're earning now? It's a question of, it's not easy. So I hear you, and that's one of the questions that we have to deal with. That's one stark issue that you can look out there and to see. But we have those questions internally as well on a personal basis. Do I do this? No. Then we talk about delayed gratification. Do I do this now? Is it going to cost me in the long run? Yeah, or not? If I decide I'm not going to educate myself or go on further, what are the implications? So those are some of the challenges that people who are self-actualizing are better able to find answers to and make the right choices. It's not easy, right? Well, thanks for the input. Yeah. It's timely. Go ahead, Brother Andre.
When I look at these passages, I know you had asked the question earlier when we look at Paul's life, and you said, is he self-actualized? Well, I'd say most definitely for Paul. But not only that, when I look at these passages, you know, and I'm going to go in deep water here, but it sounds to me that to become self-actualized is finding an objective standard. Because if I rely on my subjective standard, then chances are those hurdles that I have to go over is going to trip me up, so to speak. But if I recognize that there is an objective standard, and I make it my lifelong journey to achieve it, then chances are I'm in a better position to become self-actualized when I looked at the passages that you shared with me. That's my comment.
Absolutely. That's basically what it is that we shouldn't be hung up on our fears and our hopes, our own beliefs system. You know, we need to look at it. In other words, I could sit here and, you know, I have an aspiration to be an Olympian, and I really believe that why the 9.58 is possible, you know. I could just, you know, and I tell myself I go run my house every day with a view towards that. But am I really then going to be the fastest man in the world? No, not really. I need to have some kind of I don't want to say out of body, but out of me, understanding of reality. And that's part of the challenge. And it's not it's not easy. I mean, from birth, you're getting words in your ears from your parents, from your caregivers. You go to school, you hear and things, and so basically you are socialized with certain things that are. I don't want to get into the neuroscience, but they're actually written down into in your brain, lines telling you basically what it is. So some of the things that we talk about in terms of actions, we're not even really thinking. We have looked at the whole question of your subconscious. That basically, if you look at the tip of the iceberg, but under the bottom is the subconscious that's driving us. Very, very little of what it is that we do is out of a conscious action. So it is built up of habits over years, over time. That's really driving us. So when somebody like this comes with this thing now and say, oh, you really ought to look at things from a more realistic perspective. Are you really fully understanding yourself? Brother Andre said across the table, when I have my problems and my wife will give me trouble or whatever it is, and he's telling me, have you really thought about what I think about that? I don't know, so no man, that's where I'm going is that it's not as easy as it sounds. It's not as easy as it sounds. But if some things are easy, everybody would do it. But that doesn't mean that we can't do it. We are empowered to do things. And so that's why we're having these sessions. That's what navigating life is about. It's not about something that is out there. There are challenges that we have to face. And sometimes we look at these issues from another perspective to say, hey, are you aware? Are you conscious of this challenge? And here are some helpful steps in terms of addressing these challenges. So that's where it is. So let's look at another one, problem centering, that's what he called it. Right? And he's describing that, he's saying self-actualized people, the people that he observed, are generally strongly focused on problems outside of themselves. Now, this is huge, this is huge. Just think about our lives. How many of us are focused on issues that don't affect us and our immediate family or immediate circle? How many of us really and truly are actively engaged in looking at issues and taking action about issues that really are outside, is not just for me? So they are problem-centered rather than ego-centered. I'm not just looking at what Trevor needs. I'm looking at, hey, the world, what is it? What is the problem? What is out there? These individuals customarily have some mission in life, some task to fulfill, some problem outside of themselves, which enlists much of their energy. So I'm saying that, okay, I understand that there's a problem, but it engages much of my energy. It's not that I just see that there's a problem and I'm aware, but I want to do something about it. Here's the key note. This is really powerful stuff. This is not necessarily a task that they would prefer or choose for themselves. It may be a task that they feel is their responsibility or duty or obligation. And just as I'm reading this now for the first time, I'm thinking of Christ on the cross. It's not something that I'm saying, but it's my duty, it's my responsibility. I have to go and save these people. That is why we use the phrase, a task that they must do, rather than the phrase, a task that they want to do. So even if it is not something that we're opting to do, we are saying, no, I can't allow this to continue. I have to. It's my responsibility. I have a duty. I have an obligation to make this happen. So in general, these tasks are non-personal or unselfish, concerned rather with the good of mankind in general, or of a nation in general, or of a few individuals in the subject's family. So there we go. It's outside of myself. Isn't this kind of what you would look up to and say, oh, this is a good person. This is where we get national awards. So people that do things that's beyond their immediate self and their, sort of personal needs. So what do the scriptures help? How do the scriptures help us with this? So my thing is that the scriptures do, in fact, guide us towards fulfillment through service to others. That's the key. That's, as a matter of fact, where we're getting past now, the self-actualization to transcendence is where we actually are so focused on service to others and have this bigger mission. So 1 Peter 4:10 says, each of you should use whatever gift you have received to serve others, as faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms. Serve others. That's the key. If you want to be fulfilled, if you want to be the best that you can be, one of the things we need to take on board is to serve others. Makes sense? All right. So we can go back to Christ. We say, no, even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. Service. This is part of what we look at now if we want to get to the next level. You want to really be self-actualized. And then, of course, it talks about putting your energy into it. And so Ecclesiastes 9:10 says, whatever your hand finds to do, do it with all your might. That's a self-actualizing person, somebody who is engaged in a mission and putting effort, serious effort into getting it done. It's not a token thing. And we will see some other things afterwards that talks about a like a fake thing that you're trying to do for, a photo op. This is not a photo op thing. This is a real thing that you're getting your hands into and doing it with all your might. Yeah. Whatever you do, Colossians 3:23 says, whatever you do, do it heartily as to the Lord and not to men. So yeah, watch what people say. This is something that's a higher service. So the scriptures, going back to that the scriptures are the way of leading us well ahead of the science. Many are the plans in a man's heart, but it is the Lord's purpose that prevails. Yeah. There we go. Again, who we looking out for? Who we're looking out for is not again not to be of service to somebody who will get you in the media, whatever it is, but you're looking at, or somebody who can give you back something. This service is for the least brothers, people who are in need. And of course, what bigger mission can there be than to spread the gospel? I don't know how you feel about it, but I believe that we're seeing a situation here where the scriptures really are bringing to the table a formula for us to be self-actualized, a formula for us to be fulfilled, formula for us to be the best that we can be in practical ways, So I haven't showed you anything necessarily about the next life, etc. I'm talking about practical things in this life at this time. We can do these things and they have impact on our existence in this time. So the next thing, this was an interesting one, is that the people, the self-actualizing people, had strong ethics. This was good. I like this actually. And they had good, strong moral standards. And so they do the right things and they don't do the wrong things. Of course, as what Maslow was saying, because these people are kind of outliers as well. It's not necessarily religious people. So what we might call right and wrong might not exactly be based on their definitions of the things. But whatever it is, it should do no harm on those kinds of things. So that's good. All right. Self-actualizing people most of the time behave as though for them, is that interesting dialogue? Means and ends are clearly distinguishable. So they can identify what are the ends and what are the means. In general, they are fixed on ends rather than on means, and means are quite definitely subordinated to these ends. Interesting. There's I did a review of means and ends, whether the means, the ends just always justify the means. Very interesting study. This, however, is an overly simple statement. Our subjects make the situation more complex by often regarding as ends in themselves many experiences and activities that are, for other people, only means. Let me just bring up the other two things. So what we're saying is that they do things for their own sake. So the journey could be as entertaining, as satisfying as the arrival, the destination. So it is, when we look at life from that perspective, what it is that we're saying is that as we are moving forward, we could be getting as much benefit from the journey as for the destination that we hope to achieve. So that is what would keep us going. So if we're studying something, the process of studying, the knowledge that we are gaining is as important or satisfying, as fulfilling as the piece of paper that we get if we pass the exam. That, to me, is powerful in terms of what you would want in a human being. What I would want in a child is not just because they can pass the paper, but to acquire knowledge and to be just informed and aware and be able to share that information. And so learning in and of itself is satisfying. It is fulfilling, and not just the fact that you get a piece of paper and people respect you for it. Not knocking that, that's great, but the whole idea of that journey. Yeah. If we're working towards being able to relate to others better, or even a particular person, that job, that work that we're doing to make sure that we are, keep the relationship harmonious, etc., is great. So we're not necessarily looking at some final destination, some kind of whatever it is. It's just that I'm in the process of improving myself. And again, we talk about even the renewal study that we're going through, the renewing of the mind. It's not as if at some point in time we're going to say, okay, fine, I'm a transformed person necessarily. It is that I'm enjoying, I'm being fulfilled by this quest to be transformed, to have a renewed mind. So as I go forward, every time I feel better, it gives me a feeling of satisfaction. I'm feeling fulfilled because I'm getting better at it. That's to me is healthy. So that idea of celebrating the journey, though, and not just the destination, is a key factor in fulfillment, in self-actualization. And even, not even, the scriptures go there again. As I heard of this, that says that, let us not be weary in doing good. Just make us go on, because for at the proper time we'll reap the harvest if we don't give up. So don't give up. Continue in the process. Galatians 6 verse 9, and also Philippians 3 and verse 10 says, Paul is saying, listen to me. You see all of these things I want. I don't have it yet, I'm not there. I'm not there yet. But I can tell you something. I press towards the goal. That's me. Yeah, all of that is there. And people might, as I said, maybe people might even see me as self-actualized. But what I have not really reached there. But I'm telling you one thing, brother. I am pressing forward. That's what the scripture is saying. That we need to look at scenarios where we have this purpose, we have this goal, we have this objective, and working towards it. Consistency. I have this Blinkist app that I give you summaries of books, and one of the things that I was looking at was this whole question of consistency. What the lady calls a streak, right? So that they continue and just go on. And the value then of continuing this streak longer, the more you do the same thing, the absolute value of that. So if you can set yourself, there was a lady that had one, it was a different book, but the whole concept was that she had to do X number of push-ups a day and to continue that streak. And so she would, maybe on a plane, in the aisle of a plane, push up, whatever. So the whole idea of this streak, this consistency, this persistence is a huge factor in terms of success in any area. If we just keep on keeping on. Important. And I notice people have gone quiet on me. Nobody's saying, hey, that don't make no sense. So your scriptures guide us to fulfillment by steering us away from the pitfalls of evil. So that was the other thing, so that these people know good and evil. So I wanted to make sure that we are clear as to what is good and what is evil. And the scriptures help us there. So we can look at it. It tells, 2 Timothy, Paul tells Timothy, flee, run, youthful desires, just run, brother. Yeah. But instead of, going after those things, look at things like righteousness and faith and love and peace, so that, you can be right in a right path. So those are some of the things that, again, these things derail you. These things derail for people who are moving towards self-actualization. Yeah. So somebody, wealth is their self-actualization goal. And so they go into something dishonest, and get caught, boom, totally derailed. Yeah, find themselves in prison or something like that. So that's what we're saying. It's important then to understand why you need to be clear about good and evil. Yeah. Speak a little about duality. Could you come on, Mike, and explain what you mean by that? The question is not clear to me. Joseph, you have Mike?
Good night, everyone. Yes. The issue of evil versus good, and the suggestion I'm hearing from you is that we all need to stay on the path of good, right? But
Yes.
I'm curious about the issue of duality, because each of us at some point will do what is described in our language as good. But at some point, we all do things that some may describe as bad or evil. And maybe the word evil might be a little different from the word bad. But, our value system will kind of guide us. And therefore, because we swing on that pendulum, I wanted you to speak a little bit about that and the issue of duality. Thank you.
Okay. I'm not sure if you just joined, but we had looked at the whole question at when we talk about accepting self, is that we all sin. We all go through. So there's no question, if we can go back to when we're looking at that. So in terms of, if you're looking at the duality of self, yes, it's that we do bad things and we do good things, but we need to accept them in a way that we understand that water is wet and rock is hard. In this, yeah. So my understanding of what you're calling duality is that can an individual do good things, but also do bad things? And the answer clearly is yes. Now, if we are going to get to the place that we want to get to, whatever we want to call it, self-actualization, which is what we're doing with it here, the extent to which the bad that we do is significant or is overpowering the good, then I think we are not going to get to where we want to get, because we're going to get derailed. So let me go back to this now, where we can see the persons who are self-actualized do right and not do wrong. So one of the things that Maslow identified was a propensity to do the right thing and not to be consistently doing the wrong thing. And that's why we need to have a sense then of what constitutes good and what constitutes evil. And that's where I'm saying now the Bible actually helps us. The scriptures help us to understand what it is and to tell us the dangers, warn us, keep away from those things, because it's going to derail your plan. So I must tell you, Joseph, I'm a little concerned, not concerned, I'm a little weary of even calling it duality, because it sounds as if, boy, we should have just gone with the two. But I understand where you're coming from, though, that we do, in fact, have evil and sin in our lives, evil and good in our lives. My thing would be, yeah, it's an unfortunate situation, and we need to suppress, get rid of our tendency towards evil, and to pursue, as Paul is telling Timothy here, righteousness. Yes. So I don't know if that answers it. If not, please put on your mic and say to me, no, that's not where you want to go. And by the way,
well, Trevor, you are essentially answered the question. However, you know, when you come across people with personality disorders, like Machiavellian types and narcissists and psychopaths and sociopaths and so on, and they do make up a percentage of any society. What is being taught here might not just fit into their realm, and so they self-actualize in a way that I would suggest is on the negative or the bad path, eh? And that's the trouble I see in my life journey. You see people rising to the top, and when you dig deep, you would question, how did this happen despite these flaws? You know what I mean?
yeah, okay. All right, okay, I hear where you're going. It's 8 o'clock. I'm sorry, I got lost into the thing. This is such an intriguing study. But we have been disciplined to try to stop when we say we're going to stop. So I'm going to have to put this off until the first, who has a calendar nearby? I can't tell me what is the first. I think it looked like the 3rd of September. Wow. Please, all you who are on, come back Saturday, September 3, same link, same everything. I want to continue. I really want to talk about Joseph's point here, because I understand that, you know, you could be a sociopath and have a sense, an internalized sense of fulfillment. I'm just thinking about somebody now who is very much in the news, who's certain, have no question at all about it in their minds as to whether they are self-actualized, but it is not in a positive light. And so one of the things that we have to look at now is go back to where Andre was talking about the need then for objective standards. Yeah, I could see, I hear you, and I understand the question now in a deeper way, that we're not necessarily walking on the same track, but that doesn't mean that the person isn't going to feel as if they are self-actualize. Question is the objective standards that we have to look at then to see are they doing good or not. All right, I'm sorry. I overstayed my time. I need to do something quickly. I need a share screen, sorry. Okay. Right. There we go. Right, okay. So yeah, I wanted to invite you to join us in worship. Tomorrow, we worship at 77 Redlands Road, and we are in the building now, but you can also join us online using the same link as tonight. We have a Bible class immediately after, and on Tuesday, I want to put out a special invitation for you to join us in as we look at renewing the mind, transformation process that we're going through in the Tuesday night Bible class using the same link. And if you have any questions or comments, you can actually send us a note, St. Andrew Church of Christ, info@standrewchurchofchrist.com. By the way, all of this is now live streamed. It is up on our YouTube channel. So Simply Christians JA, you can actually get all of this stuff. If you miss it, I want to share with others. Okay. Thank you for your time. All right. And may God bless you as we strive, my gosh, to become self-actualized. All right. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you too.
Yeah. It's a very interesting study. Believe you me, I am deeply engaged. It's just wow, very, very interesting. Yeah. All right. If you got any value, invite people to come and join us first Saturday in September.